NFL, Levittown.
This is the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA, a weekly recap of your Eagles and news around the NFL. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's, tonight's show is brought to you by Rob's Automotive and Collision, BCWSA, Chickies and Pete's, Begley, Carlin and Mandio Law Firm, Penworth Financial Services, Penn Community Bank, The Capitol Grill, and Ventresca's LTD. We now go live to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report, presented by BCWSA. Now, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Adam Kaplan and Andrew DiCecco.
All right, well, close enough. It is Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco here, and you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM, seen live at WBCBsports.com. We are back in Marlton, New Jersey at Chickies and Pete's. It is a packed house, as it always is, Andrew DiCecco, as everybody is here to see the Pro Football Report. And probably, as we see I see a few Yinglings and Modelos. I think people are still drowning, perhaps, in their sorrows, as the Eagles are not in the playoffs as we enter conference championship weekend in the NFL. And by the way, there's a huge snowstorm headed this way this weekend, apparently.
Saturday, I think.
Right? Saturday into Sunday. Can you imagine if things had worked out the way the Eagles wanted it to? We could have had a conference championship blizzard Sunday.
Now, by the way, Jeff, I always wanted to ask you this because for me, when the season ends so abruptly as it does, as a beat reporter, you get so used to the routine and writing stories and doing podcasts and all those things, the day-to-day.
Yes.
Did you ever have that empty feeling, like, what now? Even though we know that there's draft and all this other stuff that follows? It's just a weird feeling.
It is a strange feeling. I guess we had it a couple of years ago when they had the slide and then lost in the first round. But then there was so much more I felt at the time. But there's a lot going on now. There is a search for an offensive coordinator. We're going to talk about that. We've got to chat about your catching up with former Eagles offensive coordinator Marty Mornhinweg and his thought on the state of the offense, play callers, the importance between that person and the quarterback. And then we're going to get into some other Eagles unresolved questions headed into the offseason. I feel like offensive coordinator has taken such so much of the space and the storylines, and deservedly so, that we forget that there's a lot of other things going on, including maybe losing a very key defensive assistant under Vic Fangio that is all getting kind of not swept under the rug, but overshadowed.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that now before it gets lost in the sauce here. But Christian Parker, I've been very vocal about how much I respect and how much he's respected in that building and around the NFL, really. Talking about a 34-year-old coach, Jeff, that as soon as he got to Philadelphia, he conducted himself like a defensive coordinator.
Yes.
And talking to a lot of different players, they always talk about his ability to relate. He's only 34 years old, so you have a group of young players. Adoree Jackson was the only player that was close to Parker in age, but he's able to relate to those guys and convey his messaging and his teaching in a way that it's going to be easily absorbed and digested. And I think his focus on fundamentals and explaining the why behind his ideologies goes a long way. And it's not surprising to me when he was brought in, it felt to me like they were renting him more so than he would be a mainstay.
Yeah, and the fact that he is interviewed not only with the Dallas Cowboys to be their defensive coordinator, but also the Green Bay Packers means right now, if he gets one of these jobs, he is not only either in the conference, but maybe in the division and with the division rivals.
Yeah, and one of the many things that he's well-versed in that any prospective team should be intrigued by is his track record of development. Whether or not it's Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean, they got the best season out of Slay in 2024. Jaquan McMillan, who had a heck of an interception the other night, is another player, undrafted free agent in 2022, was under Parker for 22 and 23, and I thought he really is starting to come into his own a little bit as a nickel defender for the Broncos. So an extensive track record of development in such a short coaching career thus far.
And don't forget Patrick Surtain, I believe, was there the year he was there, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. But he was already billed as this preeminent corner. But to your point, Parker has did a nice job in helping him reach another level.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same about Quinyon Mitchell, already guy first round, but reached potential under Christian Parker. And Riley Moss, another guy that was coached under Christian Parker for a year, right?
I don't know.
2023?
Was he drafted in 23?
That was his first year.
He was, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So those guys spent a year under Christian Parker before Christian Parker wound up moving on to Philadelphia. And honestly, Andrew, if you think about it, this all folds in also to the coordinator search because Christian Parker's getting interviews, but there could be more motion going on. You have a handful of head coaching jobs open right now, okay? You have some that have been filled that still haven't found their coordinators. Like John Harbaugh is about to start interviewing coaches. He said that today at his press conference. So you could have guys that we're not even, maybe a Clint Hurt, for example, the defensive line coach, who goes somewhere once a team figures out who its head coach is going to be, and then that guy has got to start putting together a staff. And let me remind you, today is January 20th. By this time, 5 years ago, Nick Sirianni was already the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. By this time, 13 years ago, Chip Kelly was already coach of the Eagles after first spurning them and then coming back. So even though the season itself is a week longer, okay, that's why we're already at January 20th, the fact that there are so many openings, this thing with the offensive coordinator, with Parker, with anybody else, it could be days more before you actually see the full motion of the NFL take place.
And here's a conversation that I wanted to have with you, Geoff, because I saw a lot of this and there's some deliberation. Is this job, the Eagles offensive coordinator job, is that or should that be viewed as desirable? There's two ways of looking at it. The first way of looking at it is it's a high-profile job. There's a lot of primetime games. You look at Shane Steichen, you look at Kellen Moore, they were able to advance their careers and become head coaches. You also have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who is cerebral, he has a winning DNA, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win. Mm-hmm. All good things. But then there's the other side of things. You don't know what the health status is of your offensive line. A.J. Brown, is he remaining in Philadelphia or is he going elsewhere? Will they have full autonomy of their offense, complete autonomy, and be able to run things through their vision? Those are all fair questions to have, and I think when you look at this job, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it from both sides.
I think there are very few perfect situations for a person who needs a job, right? You're unemployed because you got fired, or you're hired from a different team and now you're promoted to a job you haven't done before. You were a pass game coordinator and now you're an offensive coordinator, right? For another team whose personnel you're not familiar with. People take jobs because they want the opportunity.
Sure.
So if we just break it down from an opportunity standpoint, do the Eagles present an opportunity? A resounding yes.
Absolutely.
You get to walk into a Super Bowl champion quarterback. First of all, but forget that, right? You get to walk into an organization with a history of excellent draft and development, stability at the top. They've been to two of the last four Super Bowls, right? They've won one. Super Bowl champion quarterback, offensive line that is historically elite.
Well, we need to see about that, but
historically, I said.
Historically
elite. So you walk into a great situation. From a personnel standpoint, but the question you're asking is very pertinent. Is it an attractive job for every type of coordinator to come in? And to me, we have to answer a question first before we ask that question. And the question we have to answer, or what we need to know is, are the Eagles looking to just remodel what they already have? I mean, like you got a kitchen, right? You got an old 10-year-old refrigerator, 10-year-old stove, 12-year-old stove. You might want the newer appliances, or are they gutting the entire kitchen like you see on HGTV? Are you ripping out the cabinets? Are you ripping out the island if you got one of those? Are you ripping out your sink and replacing everything? And I know that's an extreme analogy, but I think if you're doing that, there are certain coordinators who are better than others. If you're trying to maintain your philosophy and just improve it, there are certain coordinators that are better than others.
Yeah, that's well said. And I think at least from my vantage point, the Eagles have been very successful running a certain style of offense. There's no disputing that. Heck, they won a Super Bowl doing so, and we're in another Super Bowl. But the league catches up. Mm-hmm. This is a league in which you have 31 other teams fixating on how to stop the Philadelphia Eagles. And they went out this season, and they realized we got to stop Saquon Barkley and try to make Philadelphia more one-dimensional. That's the simplistic view of it. And so there are a lot of limitations that I think are hindering this offense from reaching another level. When you hear Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni talking about the need to evolve, for me, I think you have to move further and further away and distance yourself from the previous scheme. The run-heavy, ball security conscious, low-volume passing attack, and try to find a way to make prominently Jalen Hurts comfortable becoming uncomfortable.
Right.
Doing things and pushing yourself to limits that you haven't been pushed before and being challenged.
I think you're correct. I think the Eagles need to not, though, go from one extreme to another. And so when you talk about really good coordinators, do I think Mike McDaniel would be an amazing offensive coordinator wherever he goes? Yes. Do I think that if he comes to the Eagles and radically redesigns their offense, that this thing is going to hit the ground running from week one? No, I don't. You have to change your personnel. You have to change the way you block offensively in the run game. You have a fullback now who is going to be used in a way the Eagles haven't before. You are going to have a West Coast pass offense that is designed to use every blade of grass on the field in a way the Eagles have not used before. So to me, that's the analogy of just gutting the entire kitchen and starting over. But you also have a general manager and an owner who are in win-now mode.
And they're progressive thinking.
Right, but they're in win-now mode. So what happens if you're trying to completely radically redesign your offense on the fly, and that might take more than a year. It might take an adjustment, which is a fair expectation for something so radically different. So that's why I wonder if that's the right fit. Someone or like Zach Robinson, who comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree and would do similar things. They're great offensive minds. They could come in here and get the job done, but could they do it immediately? Will Jalen Hurts adapt immediately? Will Saquon Barkley become an outside wide zone runner immediately? Do they want those things? If not, do they have to adapt what they do to the Eagles personnel? And if so, that's great that they can adapt, but now do you want them adapting? You're hiring them for what they do best. So I really do think that there are certain guys, Andrew, that represent improvement and evolution that also are consistent with what you already do, but you can do it better. And I think the guy, I'll ask you on this, the guy that I think can really help that was in the building, or at least interviewed with them today in some form or fashion, is Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll, to me, represents the guy who can come in and fix your offense without completely renovating, refurbishing, and gutting everything that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, he's run heavy. He's proven that he can tailor an offense around the strengths of his quarterback. There's a lot of play action that you like. The experience with Nick Sirianni, who Nick Sirianni said has been instrumental in his coaching career. They overlapped in 2012 with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, you can look at Brian Daboll's track record. He has a lot of success working with dual-threat quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But absent of his time with Josh Allen, you look at his offenses and where they've ranked and the lack of production. I mean, it's kind of concerning from my perspective. They haven't had these prolific offenses. He's worked with Daniel Jones, and he got Daniel Jones and the Giants team to the postseason in 22. But apart from that, you'd be hard-pressed to find a year where he wasn't with Josh Allen that he was completely dynamic and innovative and had these high-flying offenses.
Right, because he was in Kansas City once as their offensive coordinator.
That didn't go well.
It didn't go well. I agree with you. And again, that's why I'm not so much worried as, is this guy the greatest thing in offensive coaching history? Probably not. They made the playoffs in his first year, not because of his offense, because of Wink Martindale's defense. And then he didn't get along with Wink Martindale, and we know what happened there. His experience, as you said, working with Josh Allen and that kind of offense and using athletic quarterback movements blends well with the Eagles. So that is why I think it fits. It is a guy who's proven he can make it work with a good running back and a good athletic quarterback. But you're right. You don't look at him and compare his resume as an offensive play caller to some other guy like Kevin Stefanski, who's no longer out there, but at least Kevin Stefanski was 2-time Coach of the Year. He's done some nice things offensively. Comes from that old, Gary Kubiak, or Gary Kubiak, not Kubiak, Gary Kubiak, not Clint or Mike Kubiak.
Gary,
He comes from that background.
And he's going to bring structure. He would bring structure.
He'll challenge the quarterback.
Yes, I think that's important. I think one at the top of the list, one of the things that needs to be hammered home here is you have to bring in somebody that's going to challenge the quarterback and force him to be at his best and do things, as I said, make yourself comfortable being uncomfortable to really move this thing forward.
All right, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about some other offensive coordinator candidates. And then you spoke with a former Eagles offensive coordinator who was very good at his job, and he had some very interesting thoughts you're going to share with us. We'll be back here on Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA here on 1490 BCB and 107.3 FM.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie Pete's. Come join us for happy hour weekdays from 4 to 6. Enjoy half-price orders of Chickie's wings, delicious pieces, scrumptious hot, cold, or fried shrimp, jumbo soft pretzel with a trio of tasty dips, plus $3 domestic bottles, $6 Tito's, and $6 seltzers. Come join our happy hour weekdays 4 to 6. Come taste and enjoy. Only at Chickie's and Pete's.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. Every champion needs a good game plan. BCWSA and I want to make sure you have a game plan when it comes to conserving our most precious resource, water. Whether you're washing dishes, brushing your teeth, or watering your garden, there are ways you can save water and save money. Visit bcwsa.net for tips on conserving water. BCWSA, proven.
Your day-to-day life is hectic between having to pick up the kids, make dinner, the countless other tasks that you got to get done. Rob's Automotive and Collision is there to make your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you take advantage of their spacious waiting rooms, the large flat-screen TVs, complimentary coffee and muffins, and free Wi-Fi. So even when you do have to stop, Rob's is there to make you feel right at home. Give Rob's a call today at 215-826-9200 for any of your auto repair needs.
Think banking hasn't changed? Think again. At Penn Community Bank, we've been helping communities thrive for 150 years. From our nationally recognized Access Checking that offers the peace of mind of no overdrafts, to student and free checking plus options with perks that will make you wonder what you did without them, like early direct deposit, overdraft grace, and Zelle. Learn more at PennCommunityBank.com/products. Penn Community Bank. Here we grow. Account and feature terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. Ask for full details. Member FDIC.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
All right, welcome back to the Pro Football Report here on WBCB. It's Geoff Mosher, Andrew DiCecco. We were just talking about the Eagles' offensive coordinator search, and man, this is a live crowd here at Chickies and Pete's. You can tell they're loving it. They want to know right now. People are looking at us like, who's it going to be? So let's go through some of the names. We talked about Brian Daboll, right? I'm going to throw some names here at you. Go ahead. And by the way, I think another thing that complicates this is that Sean McDermott was just fired by the Bills yesterday, right?
So you're thinking Joe Brady's name?
Well, what I'm thinking is that everybody who's in the middle of a head coaching search right now, which eventually then leads to your offensive coordinator name, is like hitting pause. Whoa, we all have to think about the fact that Sean McDermott is now on the market. It just slows up the motion, and it causes more delays going on. But the Eagles continue to, and yes, Joe Brady, that makes him available. But it also could potentially take a guy like Brian Daboll out if he wants to go, if Buffalo wants him back there. So it's a big game of carousel of musical chairs. So let's talk about some of the guys the Eagles have already showed interest in. There's former Buccaneers offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard, right?
Grizzard.
I got you. I was playing with you. Yeah, Josh Grizzard. We, of course, Nick Sirianni's good friend in the Colts chain there. The offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter, James Robert Cooter, as we like to call him. Mike Kafka, of course, is interviewed with the Eagles. Zach Robinson, we've mentioned, and
Bobby Slowick.
Bobby Slowick. Which one of those names, if any, do you look at and say, yeah, I like that for the Eagles?
Well, I would say Zach Robinson's is a coach that I'm kind of intrigued by, knowing for his run design, and I think you're going to see more motion. He was a former quarterback. He was drafted by the New England Patriots back in 2010.
Yep.
So I believe that his ability to relate to a quarterback can't be overstated. But then Bobby Slowick's an interesting guy because he's from the Kyle Shanahan tree. Interestingly enough, when he came up through the ranks, he was with Mike Shanahan with Washington. Then he had a pause in his career where he worked for Pro Football Focus and was grading players.
Yep.
And then he was with the 49ers for a while, had a couple of good seasons there with C.J. Stroud. Well, really one really good season with C.J. Stroud when he was a rookie. He threw for 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and then he sort of faded a little bit and went to the Miami Dolphins as their passing game coordinator, and they were 25th in the NFL last season. So his star is sort of fallen, if you will, but he's still just 38 years old. I think he brings a little mild intrigue as well.
Do you have any issue at all or any trouble reconciling the idea of a Shanahan or McVay type of disciple as the Eagles offensive coordinator? And if it would actually work with this current construct?
Initially I did. But I go back to you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and they need to advance this thing. And they've gotten too married to a certain style, and they need to get with the times. They need to improve and evolve as an offense. And I think to do that, you need to bring in innovative minds and different types of concepts that I believe are going to help Jalen Hurts and his growth, but also help this offense elevate to the level of some of the more preeminent teams that you see around the NFL. How many times have you thought to yourself watching these postseason games, man, the Eagles don't do that? Or I wonder what the Eagles offense would look like if they did that. Well, those type of coaches are going to implement some of those different tendencies.
The Eagles won the game against the Lions this year. So Adam and I weren't trying to be negative in the post game, but the way that they were able to get the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's a special talent. The Eagles have a different kind of running back in Barkley.
Yeah.
He's not like that. But the way they were able to get the ball to him in space and Jamison Williams in space, and especially the way they do it when they're indoors, is something to really admire there. I mean, and yes, Adam and I were talking in the post-game show saying, can't the Eagles just can they get their screen game going? Can they get the bang 8 play to A.J. Brown? Can't they figure out a way to get these weapons more yards after catch? And that was an issue.
So you brought up the screen game, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. And I wanted to give you a chance here to expand on something that you were talking to me about. You texted me last week about a name. He hasn't been associated with the Eagles, but you saw what he was able to do with Kenny Gainwell in Pittsburgh and other places in the NFL, and that's Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I think Arthur Smith has the coaching credentials and pedigree that would fit with what Nick Sirianni has done here. And again, then you get back into, well, do you want to continue that or take the sledgehammer? I don't get the sense listening to Nick that they want to take the sledgehammer the way some people think it should be done. And I'm not saying those people who think that way are wrong, because I might be in that camp. But Arthur Smith likes to put 2 tight ends on the field. He likes to run the wide zone. Now, the Eagles are more of a little inside zone, outside, not as wide, but I'm sure Arthur Smith can adjust from that standpoint. But the bottom line is he likes to run the ball. He likes to go heavy up front and play 12 personnel like the Eagles do. And his pass concepts, he's known for being able to run multiple pass concepts out of the same formations. And, yes, bring the horizontal and the screen game to an offense that is severely lacking in the Eagles' offense. And, by the way, I know some people are sour on Arthur from his Atlanta Falcons coaching career. He had Spencer Ritter as a quarterback. He had Marcus Mariota, and his offenses didn't suck. They were just average. I think it's pretty good when you have Spencer Ritter as your quarterback, then you have an average offense, because he's not an NFL quarterback.
Right. One of the more baffling things now that we're on the screen game is that the past couple training camps, whether it's DeAndre Swift, whether it's Saquon Barkley, Will Shipley, who we've had on this show, they catch a plethora of passes, whether it's wheel routes or even just in the flat, Jalen Hurts is looking to them in training camp early and often throughout any practice, yet it doesn't correlate to regular season. It's not implemented in their offense.
Yep.
And I can't make heads or tails of it.
Listen, I'm sure you've heard Adam say it. You've heard me say it. Adam and I, our listeners probably hear us say it all the time. We go to training camp and we watch these camps, whether it was Swift, whether it was Barkley, whether it was Gainwell, and we're looking at each other like, wow, they just threw it to the running back on wheel routes 4, 5, 6 straight times. They're really trying to get this thing incorporated into the offense. And then we're like week 7 in the season, and we're like, what happened? Where did it go?
Well, like the great Who song, I won't be fooled again. So
Yeah.
I need to see it to believe it in the regular season.
Absolutely. But I do think Arthur Smith's philosophy and the way he orchestrates an offense may not excite a lot of people. But again, this doesn't have to be about just radically taking everything you do and blowing it up. I wouldn't mind it, but I also think it's hard when you have so many experienced veteran guys. It's one thing if you're a head coach and you're starting from scratch and you bring in a guy, but they're not. They're in win urgent. You heard Howie Roseman say, we are in an urgent mode to win now. So they need somebody who can come in and implement an offense that this personnel is not going to need 6 to 7 weeks to figure out.
Yeah, you're right. Realistically, to expect the Eagles to rip out the foundation and start from scratch and completely reimagine this offense is not realistic.
Yeah.
It's more realistic to bring in someone that's going to marry their vision of the offense with what they already have in place, with the talent that they have in place, and try to go from there, but have a more enhanced version, kind of like what we were expecting to see from Kellen Moore before it became the Saquon Barkley show.
Oh, absolutely.
I believe that they should rip it down, but that doesn't mean that that's what I think is realistically going to happen.
Right. Hey, producer Chris, we should be able to get like a home remodeling sponsor for this show, because we might have 2 or 3 more weeks of these analogies and home improvement and rip. I'm just giving you a suggestion, an idea. You take it to the brass, and we'll see what we can do. Right?
That's free. That's free advice. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. You had a great conversation. It's available on Inside the Birds podcasting platform right now and tomorrow. It's a 2-part series with former Eagles offensive coordinator Marty Mornhinweg. And the first part of it was really interesting. I think people forget that he was part of the Eagles staff in 2020, which didn't work out well for that season and that staff, but did for the long term, because Marty was a big part of scouting, watching the tape on Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma, and helping the organization decide to draft him in the 2nd round. What else did you learn about Marty's role there?
Well, he was essential in facilitating his analysis and information to Doug Peterson and then the evaluators prior to the 2020 draft. He worked closely with Jalen. That was his job. Mm-hmm. You had all these different coaches, whether it was Andrew Briner, who was a pass game analyst. You had Rich Scangarello. Press Taylor was there. Marty's job was solely to focus on the development of Hurts. And he talked about, it was day 3 of training camp where he really realized, and keep in mind, Marty Mornhinweg has worked with Steve Young, Brett Favre, Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Jeff Garcia. I said, based on your experience, when did you know that he had what it takes, or that any quarterback has what it takes to be successful at the next level? And he said it was about day 3 of training camp, where he said sleep is secondary. He's in the building until midnight. You have to listen to the podcast, of course, but you're going to come away with the profound thought that he loves Jalen Hurts. Marty Mornhinweg loves Jalen Hurts, and he's still in contact with him. He still has dialogue and through texting.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, I think at the time Jalen may have referred to Marty Mornhinweg as a wise old owl.
Yes, I think, and Jalen doesn't really, go out of his way to praise anybody. His past offensive coordinator, especially. But he has always said nice things about Marty. I also thought it was interesting for people to listen to. Marty went back to the Alabama tape and the Oklahoma tape and noticed some things that were different in his game. So that was really interesting. Before we're getting close on a break, I also want to talk about part 2, which comes out tomorrow, because this is really pertinent to the Eagles right now. What was his viewpoint on what you should be looking for from a new offensive play caller for this particular team?
Yeah, well, he talks about, I asked him about his experience shouldering play calling duties alongside Andy Reid and what that dynamic was like. And then I equated it to the Eagles. And, you have to first figure out what you want to be as an offense. and start to build around that.
Sounds familiar.
So, yeah, it talks a lot about what you and I were just talking about, and more so acquiescing or accentuating the strengths of your personnel,
right?
More so than ripping it down and trying to square peg round hole.
Yeah.
But it's a really fascinating conversation. We get into all that and a number of other things that I believe Eagles fans will really appreciate.
He had such great energy. He was out there in Montana. He played at the University of Montana. I think he was doing some play-by-play for them. But to hear him talk about the Eagles, he's been so many Baltimore, Jets, San Francisco, Green Bay,
Detroit.
I think I was going to say he's been so many places that he probably had great experiences. Detroit is probably the one that he'd like to forget. But you could tell he sort of has a reverence for his time with Andy Reid in Philadelphia.
And so, and so I asked him, do you ever get the itch to get back into coaching? And he gave a good answer. You'll have to listen to hear what he said.
Absolutely. That will be out tomorrow on the Inside the Birds podcast and YouTube platform. We got to take a break, but when we get back, guess what? The Eagles got more than just offensive coordinator questions entering the 2026 season. This is going to be a busy offseason, and we're going to talk about all of that when we come back. Of course, you're listening to the Pro Football Report presented by WBCWSA here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie and Pete's, the official sports bar of your world champion Philadelphia Eagles. Go where the players go. Come join us all season for Eagles pep rallies, watch parties, and the best in-game experience anywhere. Ice-cold draft beer, world-famous food, and fan-friendly fun for every Eagles game. Every Monday night in South Philly, the Jordan Mailata Show, presented by Miller Lite, followed by Chickie and Pete's Players Lounge with a current player, hosted by Ike Reese and Hugh Douglas. Go where the players go. Chickies and Pete's.
Rob's Automotive and Collision Center in Lower Bucks County is a full-service repair center with competitive prices, top-of-the-line products, and the finest auto body and mechanical repair technicians anywhere. Rob's makes repairing your car easy. Same-day service guaranteed. Whether it's an oil change, state inspection, or a mechanical issue, Rob's will have you in and out and on your way. 2700 Veterans Highway in Bristol, 215-826-9200 for 24-hour emergency towing. Call 215-826-0250.
Hey, BCWSA customers, this is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. My friends at BCWSA are committed to providing us with safe, reliable water and sewer services. They operate state-of-the-art treatment facilities, provide clean drinking water, and make much-needed investments to protect our environment and ensure a sustainable future. Learn how BCWSA's investments help grow and serve our communities. Visit bcwsa.net. BCWSA, prove it.
At Penn Community Bank, we're in the business of building thriving communities. That means breaking down the barriers to home ownership, supporting fair, affordable access to housing from Philadelphia to the Lehigh Valley, like our Home Opportunity Mortgage that empowers eligible borrowers with no minimum credit score, no down payment, access to grant programs, and so much more. Visit PennCommunityBank.com/home for more details. Penn Community Bank. Here we grow. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Account and feature terms, restrictions, and conditions apply.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
All right. We are back here at Chickies and Pete's, live from Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, New Jersey. What a packed house, great crowd. Everybody wondering what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Andrew, there's more than just an offensive coordinator search going on with this team. There's other real issues that are going to be presented to them this offseason. And the first thing we should really talk about is the health and the state of the offensive line, which, as we know, it doesn't matter who your coach is, who your play call. If your offensive line isn't better than it was last year with all the injuries that they had, they're in trouble. And as of right now, Lane Johnson, is he coming back? How's that foot? Cam Jurgens did not play well despite making the Pro Bowl, and Landon Dickerson looked beat up.
Mailata was banged up as well.
And Mailata as well. So 4 of your 5 guys. And then the 5th guy who stayed healthy was the one who was acclimating all year, and he became known as not Mekhi Becton, talking about, of course, right guard Tyler Steen.
I thought he was okay.
I thought he was fine,
I thought
too.
he was fine.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a big question. Landon Dickerson, after the final game, he said what we all could see that he was dealing with something, dealing with a lot of things this season, and he was emotional after the game. You have to wonder, I mean, he's dealt with so many injuries in his career. Is this going to be something that continues throughout his career? I don't know that it's going to get better. Cam Jurgens, is he going to be more of the player that he was 2 years ago after he'll now be a year removed from the back surgery, or is this more or less who he is? And then Lane Johnson, that's the big question.
The big question, and of course, the injury report is brought to you by the attorneys at Bagley, Carlin, and Mandio. Contact them today for a free consultation at 215-806-3689. That's 215-806-3689. Yeah, the injury report, and the Eagles aren't even playing, but I feel like the injury report for the Eagles right now is just as important as it might have been in week 6, 9, 13, or 15. Lane Johnson, to me, is the big one, Andrew, because he's getting older. You know, I'm going to go ahead and assume he'll come back and play next year, and what we need to know is how bad. Obviously, the Eagles thought the Liz Frank sprain in his right foot, which is a midfoot sprain, was not going to be season-ending. They didn't put him on IR. But then 5 weeks went by, and he didn't play a game, and then he got out for practice and only made it to a limited participant.
All 3 days, yeah.
All 3 days, and then never played in the 49ers game, and he hasn't really spoken to the media since. So
since October 9th. He hasn't spoken since October 9th.
October 9th.
And A.J. Brown, for those keeping score, it was December 8th. I was there in the SoFi Stadium locker room after the Chargers game.
And what would that injury be, bruised ego?
I don't know what that would be. But, yeah, I mean, for Lane Johnson, you've been around him for a while, Jeff. You've covered him. Having such a storied career, it's tough to envision if you're a competitor like Lane to bow out after your last 8 games were spent injured and on the sideline watching.
100%, almost, I would say 90% of the professional athletes I've covered have never wanted to end their career with a season-ending injury. I mean, look at Brandon Graham. I mean, he worked so hard to come back from that torn tricep just to be able to play in the Super Bowl and then win it. And then, of course, he tore it again, but at least he won the Super Bowl. So I would be shocked. Well, I can't say shocked. At some point, your body tells you you're physically not capable of doing something. And that's why I wonder about the state of his right foot right now. You got to think with the time off and rehab, or maybe if he gets what he needs, he'll be okay. But I guess I'm leaving open the door that he might not. But even if he is, Andrew, I think at this point you got to go into next year having either drafted high or paid a lot more attention, and no offense to Fred Johnson, but getting a successor type of tackle in there.
Yeah, and that goes with the question that I had as far as if you're an offensive coordinator, I mean, you have no way of knowing, but you're going to be curious as to what is the state of the offensive line that 2 seasons ago, and it's not hyperbole, played at a historic level. What version am I getting next season if you want to play this style? If you want to be run first and we have an offensive line that's bruised and battered like it was last season, well, then that's going to ultimately cap what you're able to do and as a play caller. So these are questions that you're going to have if you're a prospective candidate inquiring about these jobs or being in these interviews.
I haven't really studied it. I've had a theory that I ran past Jordan Mailata on cleanout day. I asked him if he felt that the collective toll of both practicing and executing the tush push over the years took more mileage off the offensive linemen than maybe they realized. And I was expecting him to say no, because you know how defensive they are a little bit about the push play. But he actually said maybe, and he'd be interested to see if there's any data on that. But then he went so far to say, look at the style of football that we played. Don't just restrict it to the tush push. They've been a run-heavy team. They ran more than any team in the NFL in 2024, brought everybody back for 2025 for the most part, other than Becton, and continued to run the ball against fronts that were coming after them. And so really you have to – I look at teams like the Steelers, like the Ravens, the Packers. Those teams commonly are dealing with offensive line injuries, right?
Yeah.
We see it all the time. So the Eagles, who already put a lot of investment into backups, may have to double down on that going into next year with young backups ready to start multiple games.
Yeah, it's funny. I had actually been saying that for most of the season, that so much was made in the offseason about how Saquon Barkley handling the ball 482 times, playoffs included, would affect him in 2025, but not enough was made about how that style of play, that attrition would affect the offensive line. We probably should have all talked about it a little bit more, but it's a real thing. That grading style where you're constantly on the attack, and I mean, there's no there's no let up there. That's how they play football.
Right.
And so,
I mean, there were times they ran the push play like 3 times in a row on the goal line with guys jumping over them.
Right.
Yeah.
And but then just the style of being
Just
run
running
first
play.
team.
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley didn't get touched all that much that season. The offensive line was paving the way and taking on a lot of the punishment. And so you wonder if that wear and tear, I think it's fair to question whether or not that wear and tear severely impacted them this season.
Well, I tell you what, you know this better than anybody. The Eagles are at the forefront of NFL teams that do research, data, analytics into every facet of the organization. And I am positive they will study this. And they are also at the forefront of tailoring their practices to make sure that guys are not overworked. Now, they were banged up as far as their level of play not being the same, but at the same time, they had 21 of 22 stars. Oh, no,
Yeah.
20 of 20, because Andrew Makuba had a broken but as far as
ankle,
53-man roster, though, 21 of 22 players were available for their playoff game.
Right, and my counter to that would be, and I've said this before when this subject comes up, just because someone's not listed on the injury report doesn't mean that they aren't dealing with something. That
Correct.
late in the season, everyone's dealing with something.
Yep.
But you have others who will play through things, and they clearly don't look like themselves. And so whenever I hear, but the Eagles are pretty healthy for most teams, according to the injury report, yes. But Jordan Mailata clearly looked banged up all season. Cam Jurgens looked banged up all season. And you look across the board, Jalen Carter, there's so many guys that you can clearly see were sort of a shadow of themselves as we know them as. So, I mean, sometimes it's a little bit beyond the injury report.
So I could theoretically see, you could convince me that Mailata and Jurgens just need more. They'll be fine next year because Jurgens' back surgery was a microdiscectomy. It wasn't like a fusion. It wasn't supposed to be something highly restrictive. But he had it late. They went to the Super Bowl.
Sure.
He had it after that. Then the next thing you know, OTA starts up.
Yeah.
So he may never have great recovery time. And same thing with Mailata, who never had like an official major injury that kept him out. I do have concerns long-term about, A, what we talked about with Lane, and B, with Landon Dickerson, because this is a guy who came to the Eagles with, 4 lower body surgeries?
Yeah.
I mean, he had
At
the
least.
tightrope, he had the ACL twice, I think. I mean, he had already come to the Eagles with so many surgeries, and then had 2 this past offseason before the season started.
And then he had the meniscus, right? It was in the open practice. Then leading up to the opener, it was the back injury. Then he had an ankle, and then I think it was a knee at some other point in the season. He battled through all of that. To his credit, Landon Dickerson is tough as nails. But he clearly wasn't operating at anywhere close to 100%. And it's not magically going to get better as you advance and go into another season. You're another year older, another year of wear and tear. So those are fair questions. And I'm expecting the Eagles to address the offensive line in the upcoming draft. They have to. If they want to play that style and they continue to lean into their philosophical approach of building through the trenches, it shouldn't be a surprise if that's where they look.
But when does the Andrew DiCecco Eagles only mock draft come out? That's got to be soon on InsideTheBirds.com. I think we need it soon. We need to know about these centers, guards, and tackles that they're going to be taking, okay?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, good. So I agree with you. Eagles offensive line, major issue from an injury standpoint. And then real quick, as we got a little bit more time, obviously Jalen Carter in the shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, he did not play well at all in the postseason game against the 49ers. He looked okay. He looked good against the Bills. He made some plays, but this is something to keep an eye on as far as where he goes with his treatment, because he sort of intimated when he spoke to us that, we might need to revisit it in the offseason. And that's your star player that you're suddenly going to have to make a big decision on to give a lot of money to.
Sure.
He's logged a ton of snaps over the past couple of seasons, and so that's something that's sort of flying a little under the radar that does have some cause for concern.
Oh, I'd almost be surprised if it didn't get out there, or if we didn't find out that he underwent either at least 1, maybe 2 procedures, like real procedures, not PRP ones.
Right.
Because even 2 medical professionals told me that there's actually not a lot of empirical data that shows that PRP injections work. They're supposed to, like, obviously regenerate the blood, make you feel better, but they're not long-term treatments. If you have a tear or if you've got stretching out of the muscle, you probably have to get that surgically repaired to be 100%.
And that's their defensive centerpiece, one of them, him and Zach Bond. So they have to figure that out.
Yeah, and again, these shoulder issues for him go back to Georgia as well. So it's obviously another thing the Eagles are going to have to think about before they go ahead and make him the highest paid defensive player in the game, which I think we all thought he'd be in the running for going into this season. And listen, he's an undeniable talent. I think as long as his shoulders are fine, he'll be that kind of guy. That is our injury report. It's been brought to you by the attorneys at Bagley, Carlin, and Mandio. Remember, you can contact them today for a free consultation at 215-806-3689. That's 215-806-3689. When we come back, we'll preview Conference Championship Weekend on the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA right here at 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie Pete's. Bring your party to Chickie Pete's. We can handle groups of all sizes at our locations across the Delaware Valley. Big parties, small parties, company parties, family parties, get-togethers with friends. Order off the menu or our special catering options. We can do it all, including coming to your home or office or special Play 2 party packages at our South Philly location. Book your party today. Hurry, the space is limited. Visit chickieandpete's.com for details. Chickie and Pete's is official caterer of the Philadelphia Eagles Touchdown Club and a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
When an Eagles player gets hurt, the team takes care of him. When you get hurt, the attorneys at Bagley, Carlin, and Mandio will take care of you. They understand that a severe accident can be a life-altering event. You need a reliable teammate to fight for you. The attorneys at Bagley, Carlin, and Mandio will get you great results. And if there's no recovery, there's no fee. Contact them today at 215-750-0110 for a free consultation. 215-750-0110 for a reliable ally that's on your side.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. Every champion needs a good game plan. BCWSA and I want to make sure you have a game plan when it comes to conserving our most precious resource, water. Whether you're washing dishes, brushing your teeth, or watering your garden, there are ways you can save water and save money. Visit bcwsa.net for tips on conserving water. BCWSA, proven.
Your day-to-day life is hectic between having to pick up the kids, make dinner, the countless other tasks that you got to get done. Rob's Automotive and Collision is there to make your life a whole lot easier. Make sure you take advantage of their spacious waiting rooms, the large flat-screen TVs, complimentary coffee and muffins, and free Wi-Fi. So even when you do have to stop, Rob's is there to make you feel right at home. Give Rob's a call today at 215-826-9200 for any of your auto repair needs.
Think banking hasn't changed? Think again. At Penn Community Bank, we've been helping communities thrive for 150 years. From our nationally recognized Access Checking that offers the peace of mind of no overdrafts, to student and free Checking Plus options with perks that will make you wonder what you did without them, like early direct deposit, overdraft grace, and Zelle. Learn more at PennCommunityBank.com/products. Penn Community Bank. Here we grow. Account and feature terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. Ask for full details. Member FDIC.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for the Pro Football Report presented by BCWSA. Once again, here are your hosts from Inside the Birds, Geoff Mosher and Andrew DiCecco.
Last segment here on the Pro Football Report at a loud and lively Chickies and Pete's in Marlton, New Jersey. And the Eagles, no, they are not in the conference championship. At what point did you think that they were probably not going to be a deep playoff team? Did you have like a feeling?
Buffalo game.
Oh, that late in the season?
The Buffalo game, because everything started to come together where it was like, I don't know that the defense can continue to pick up the tab. The offense just wasn't getting there. And Jalen wasn't running the football as much. And so that can severely it deprives the offense of a component that makes it special. And when I saw the reluctance there, I don't know. I had my doubts as to whether or not they were going to be able to not necessarily even flip a switch, but get to the level that they were at against the Minnesota Vikings or even against the Raiders. Be a competent offense that can move the football. And it was going into that 49ers game that I wasn't necessarily as confident as I was. Do I think they're a better team than the 49ers? I do. And I picked them to win. And I picked them to win that game. But looking back, we should have seen it coming. I should have seen it coming.
Yeah. I think I felt after the Bears' loss that they were going to obviously make the playoffs, but would not do it. And not because I thought that that's how the defense was going to play, but they weren't very good offensively that day either. They had won 2 amazing games against the Lions and Packers by the skins of their teeth, relying so much on the defense that I kept thinking, you just can't ask your defense to win every single week after week. And I couldn't pay much attention to that Raiders game, right? Because that was the Raiders.
No, I think actually that first Commanders game was where I realized that the offense was what it was, and I didn't think it was good. That's where I really had questions because they were down in that game.
Yep.
They had to scratch and claw
against
an inferior team.
Yeah.
And in that circumstance, I was thinking to myself, well, what are they going to do in the postseason?
100%.
And if you're being real, if you're being objective, it just never quite felt that way. And then when I saw the Buffalo Bills game, that's when everything started to come together where I'm like, I don't know if the defense is going to be able to carry this team because the offense was that anemic that I didn't know that they're going to be able to put up 17 to 20 in a postseason game.
Do you mean when the key to the game for Buffalo, as we bring up now our Penworth Financial keys to the game, the key to your financial future is Penworth Financial. Call them today at 267-997-4503 or visit penworth.com. The key to that game was, the Bills are down 3 defensive tackles. They are literally starting 2 guys, off the street at defensive tackle. The Eagles should be able to run the ball. They cannot run the ball against a team that doesn't have its top 3 defensive tackles. That was a very good indicator, as you're saying, that things were just not going to go their way for the long haul. Now, we do have 2 exciting games in the NFL. I'm very much looking forward to them. We have, with the early game was I believe, Broncos-Patriots, right? In Denver. Now, the Broncos lose their starting quarterback it's almost hard to believe. He finished the game. He made a pass.
Second to last play
of the game, and then they find out he's got a broken ankle, and he's out.
That's a tough deal.
It is a tough deal.
For Bo Nix, by the way. Really is. He played a good game. I thought he answered a lot of the scrutiny and the skepticism that was sort of looming over him going into that game. Everyone was waiting for him to have this game where there was the game that C.J. Stroud had, right? And I thought that he really rose to the occasion, and you would like to see what he was able to do in the next round. So now it'll be Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, it will be. And it kind of ruins that matchup you were going to get of the 2 guys drafted in the same class, Nix and Drake May. Drake May obviously taken a lot earlier. What a great and unbelievable season he had.
Yeah.
I felt that once they got past the Chargers and they were able to win a game in which they were uncomfortable offensively, because let's face it, all year long, the Patriots have played a cake schedule, and they've had the shot play going all year long. They have been comfortable. They were uncomfortable for 3 quarters in that Chargers game, pull it out, and then I said, now I feel like they're ready to play the Texans. And, of course, the Texans helped hand them the game with all the turnovers and the 4 interceptions in the first half. But, to me, I like this matchup of this rising New England team versus this Broncos team that was really ready for it, and now they've got some adversity.
And this is in Foxborough, right?
No, it is in Denver. Denver was number 1
so
seed.
You got to worry about the altitude, and that sometimes could be the equalizer there when teams visit.
Sure.
But Jarrett Stidham, Sean Payton, unsurprisingly expressed a lot of confidence in his backup quarterback. I imagine they're going to take the game out of his hands a little bit and try to hand it off to – They may get J.K. Dobbins back, his 21-day practice window open.
Yep.
You're going to see a lot of McLaughlin, the running back, and things like that. But I have imagined knowing Sean Payton and seeing his offenses, I think he's going to really tailor this to optimize what Stidham can do well, get the ball out of his hands, short, easy completions, get into a rhythm. And then hopefully, if you're the Broncos, you want to see your defense be able to kind of pin their ears back with Nick Benito and Pat Surtain to be able to hold up their end.
Andrew, I like the Broncos in this game. I really do. I think their defense, listen, Drake May has been good, but he's turned the ball over quite a bit throughout the playoffs. The Broncos have played more sound football, and their defense in Denver can be very suffocating even for May. So I actually like the Broncos as much as bleak as it seems. And, hey, Nick Foles gave some encouragement. He reminded the Broncos on social media, that the Patriots struggle in these championship-type games against backup quarterbacks.
I'm going with the Broncos, too. I went with them last week.
Nice.
And I was alone in that with 3 other people. They went against me on that. But, yeah, I'm going with Denver here.
All right. By the way, happy 37th birthday today, I believe, to Nick Foles.
Oh, is that right? He's a year older than me.
Yes, he's several years younger than me. All right, let's go talk about the keys to the game for Rams Seahawks. Now, the Rams have been my team all year long. I thought going into the year they had a chance to be the number 1 seed. I had a feeling that by middle of the year, I liked them as a Super Bowl team. I've liked them even to go on the road and win games, but I got to say, at this point, I'm struggling to pick the Rams. They're not playing their greatest. It was a good win in Chicago, but this Seattle team, it looks really tough.
The great Sean McVay mismanaged that game, and he still found a way to beat the Bears.
Yeah.
I didn't think Ben Johnson did a great job either, but the Bears could have very easily won that game. Mm-hmm. The Rams secondary has been exploited for the back stretch of the season. They're a good football team offensively. They're flawed. They're undersized. Defensively, I like their pass rush, but their secondary leaves a lot of questions there. Whether or not Sam Darnold can take advantage of that, we'll have to wait and see. But I love Seattle's defense. They are fast-flowing. They flow to the ball, and they hit, and they get after the quarterback. So I think that they're going to make Matthew Stafford and company a little uncomfortable there. I'm taking the Seattle Seahawks.
I don't want to come off my Super Bowl pick, especially since they've survived some adversity here, the Rams, and have put themselves in position to be in the Super Bowl. But I think I'm going to have to take the Seahawks as well. I just think that they're playing on an unbelievable level. So to me, if I'm going to say the key for the Seahawks, it's this. They do everything really, really well. They lose Zach Charbonnet, obviously, to an injury.
It's a big loss.
So they're going to have to rely a little bit more on Kenneth Walker. I think if they can get the ball to if they can get the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba 8 to 10 times, they got a really good chance to win this game. If the Rams can figure out a way to limit him, then I think that would tilt it toward the Rams.
Yeah, they need to give Chris Carson a call and see what he's up to.
Oh, Chris Carson.
To help out that backfield. But, yeah, look.
Not Rashad Penny?
No, there you go. He's a little bit he's a little bit less removed from the NFL than Chris Carson, who retired a while ago. But, I think this is going to be a big opportunity for Sam Darnold here to answer some questions, check off some boxes. This is a game where he's going to have to throw the football. He didn't have to do that against the 49ers. I've been a Sam Darnold defender over the past couple of years. He's won 14 games with 2 different franchises. That doesn't happen by accident. But now it's time for him to elevate his game to another level to get Seattle to where they want to be.
All right, those were Penworth's financial keys to the game. Again, the key to your financial future is Penworth Financial. Call them today at 267-997-4503 or visit penworth.com. Before we get out of here, I need a prediction from you.
What's that?
By this time next Tuesday, by 6 o'clock next Tuesday for the next Pro Football Report, have the Eagles named an offensive coordinator?
I'm going to say no.
Wow, that's a long time. Really? No?
I'm going to say no.
Wow. I thought for sure you were going to say yes.
It occurred to me that it's still 7 days, but I'm going to go with my initial thought here. No.
Is that a red flag if they haven't found their offensive coordinator 7 days from now?
Depends on how you interpret it. Could be, diligence on their part, or it could be that prospective coordinators are a little hesitant.
All right. I'm going to say they have, only because, like I said, I was researching when coaching hires are typically made. They're usually around this time. Now, coordinator hires might be a little bit different. I didn't look at that. We'll have to see. But anyway, it's been fun talking some ball with you.
Always.
I do want to say congratulations to Andrew Jones and Carlos Beltran for making the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame.
Andrew Jones.
And Chase Utley, about 60% of the vote. He did not. He fell short, but that was his highest that he's gotten.
Did any outfielder cover as much ground as Andrew Jones?
No. Nobody covers as much ground as Andrew Jones. That's going to do it for this week's Pro Football Report, presented, of course, by BCWSA right here on 1490 WBCB and 107.3 FM.
You're listening to 1490 WBCB and on your FM dial at 107.3 W297CL Levittown.
The 1970